We meet Catherine for a new commission when we realize that Nahida is controlling her. She tells us about her happy dream and that Dunya's art is currently stable. She wants to figure out what the sages are up to. She sadly can't take over their minds as they don't have the Akasha terminals. She can't take over a student and infiltrate the premises as she is against that, and she can't use anyone close to the sages. She tells us what we're going to use Setaria. Setaria is always close to the Grand Sage, and she is one of the rare folk that's been born in the desert and is now in the academia, and spy on her with the help of possessing her friend. We set off and visit a fortune teller kid, a guy who sells pottery, and a tavern hostess, and agree that the traveler is going to possess the people and use the Scarlet King thing to guilt trip her. The day comes and Setaria arrives at the fortune teller. We find out that the resurrection of the Scarlet King is part of a misinformation campaign by the Academia. At the Potter, we guilt trip Setaria. She betrayed the Scarlet King. At the tavern, we tell her about the Sub-Zero's loop incident, which shocks her, and then we continue to guilt trip her. She runs to an Aramite guard crying heretics, and then we continue to guilt trip her until she breaks. She decides to help us and admits the mass dream harvest scheme. Also says that the Academia outcast has returned and that the sages are all weary. She will bring us some documents. The next evening, we meet Catherine as Nahida, and she says that the city is suspiciously quiet. At the meeting place, we have a cutscene.
Ah, the triumphant hero returns at last. And to a rather spectacular welcome, even if I do say so myself.
You're the outcast, expelled from the Academia.
Indeed I am. Although these days they tend to call me the Doctor. If you're looking for your researcher friend, she has already been taken into confinement. With some basic caution, she could have discovered the listening device on her person. Clearly, she lacks the degree of rigor expected of a true scholar.
The people of Sumeru City. What have you done to them?
I simply made some minor adjustments to their Akasha terminals. Now they can deposit information directly into the subconscious. As you can see, all these lovely people now believe this traveler is a hero who has just saved the world. My experiment is a success. And now it seems they can no longer hold back their sheer adoration.
No, what should we do? These are all just regular people. Leave now. You need to get out of here. But that guy's a Fatui Harbinger! We can't just leave you here! Nor can I abandon the people of Sumeru! Don't worry. We'll meet again outside of the city.
I see. You appear to have overridden their mental faculties with your own consciousness. To possess such a powerful mind, you must be the god of wisdom.
The traveler decide it is time to find Tighnari. We are ambushed by Aramites hired by the Torre. We defeat them, then go to Calais. Supposedly, Tighnari went to Pardes Die. When we arrive in Pardes, we meet Catherine. She basically escaped, but the threat is not over yet, as the Torre can still capture Nahida in the terminal. Inside Pardes, we meet Hyphasia. Apparently, she made contact with the gods. She helps us come into contact with our consciousness. A cutscene.
It took 3 betrayals for me to finally understand. The world is just an elaborate tapestry of lies. My fury will never be quelled. The first to betray me was a god. My creator. My mother. Valuing strength above all, she saw no worth in me and I was discarded. The second was a human. My family. My friend. Consumed by fear, he saw me as an abomination. The third was one exactly like me. A hope for the future. A fledgling barely out of the nest. Powerless before his mortality, he broke his promise to me. Humans, they can't be trusted. And the gods fill me with pure loathing. So I said good riddance. I denounced the world and laugh in its face. My chest will never again be defiled by worldly filth. I will scrub away every last trace of human emotion. Then it will be empty, a blank slate, and ready to receive a supreme gnosis, brimming with pure divinity. There is no need to fear. The pain will be brief. Your era is coming to an end.
All this were actually Scaramouche's memories. Hypatia has gone crazy. Another cutscene. Tignari saved us. Nahida can no longer contact us as she was imprisoned. Tignari knows about the Sage project of restoring Irminsul. Academia wants to turn Scaramouche into a god. The reason why Hypatia lost her mind was because she made contact with a god in the making. Our next place of interest is Caravan Rabat before the desert. At the Caravan Rabat, we meet Al-Haytham. We were followed by Eremites. He tells us about the origin of the Great Divine Capsule, which is in the desert, and asks us what we know, but we're quiet. Then we make our way to Aru village, a cutscene.
Cyno.
Al-Haytham shows Cyno the capsule. Dehya arrives. All three start arguing, but from the village, Candace shouts and invites us into the house as a sandstorm is closing in on the city. There, Candace says they all need to talk it out. Cyno says he exiled himself from the academia because he saw missing files and investigated and figured out the files were hidden by the sages. That angered the sages, so they said academia only uses the matter as tools. Al-Haytham admits he was tasked to investigate the traveler for insight into the divine capsule. But after seeing what that did to the Eremite in Port Ormos, who got crazy, he knew that they wanted to make him crazy too. Dehya, on the other hand, just decided to visit the village. Because Candace hasn't returned from fighting outside, we follow her where we fight some monsters. The chief of our village comes and says there have been more sandstorm and earthquake lately since the withering of Irminsul. We find out that the village keepers are missing. They are scholars exiled by the academia and gone mad. We exchange information with Cyno and he tells us that the village keepers' names come from one of the story of an earthquake where one used green energy to root the houses so they wouldn't fall apart. We figure out that was Nahida and that the keepers were also calmed down by her. A kid appears and wants us to save Grandpa, who was a villager keeper who had a slight resemblance to the kid's grandpa. We find this out through Candace. We asked the locals of our village for information. One woman was behaving weirdly. Apparently, village keepers were sacrificed for the Scarlet King's resurrection. We go to Isaac Grandpa's house to look for clues. Someone lured the keepers away with incense. We return to Candace and while talking, a man spies on us. Dehya suspiciously winks at us. There are 3 radicals probably working on this. Dehya and the traveler go to Caravan Rabat. We stop at the wall. Not only is it there to stop sandstorms, but also to stop desert folk from coming in. We find a friend of Dehya's. He takes us to the radicals' place. There we are ambushed. They knew our plans and want to overthrow Sumeru in the name of the Scarlet King. 2 of the 3 radicals showed up. The third one is the person in the village who offered to feed the kid's grandpa. After we defeat the 2 radicals, Dehya confesses she lied to confuse their spy and everything was her plan all along. We then bring the radicals to the chieftain's hut. The next day we enter the hut and find out that a mysterious person was spreading rumors in the tavern about the resurrection of the Scarlet King and the need for village keepers as sacrifices. Supposedly, the Aramites take them to a junction where the mysterious man takes them away. It was the Academia that takes them. Outside, Al-Haytham tells us that a woman lied to us because she was afraid. We talk to the woman and she tells us she hears cries in the night in the direction of an old Elazar treating hospital. We investigated the hospital and at night hear the cries. The hospital has a basement. After doing the elemental monument puzzle, we enter. In the basement, we find Al-Haytham Sr. with crazy symptoms. Apparently, they juice out the scholar's knowledge into the Rukanet capsule, thus making them crazy. Then, they use that for the creation of the god. After that, we return to our village. Inside the hut, we figure out that the Academia managed to escape with the villagers because they can predict Cyno's every move over the Akasha due to his strong morals and resolve. Meanwhile, Dehya disappears. We follow Cyno into the desert. There we dig up 2 headpieces used to extract canned knowledge. They lost this before the sandstorm. We stumble upon Dehya with the Aramites. They stole the villagers for the Scarlet King. Al-Haytham offers himself instead of the hostages so he could study the village keepers and Dehya offers her right arm to have Rashman, the Aramite leader, trust her and Al-Haytham. They don't cut her arm off, but the deal is on. The next morning, we meet for the hostage exchange at the mausoleum of King Deshret. Rasham only brought the grandpa and not every villager, which angers Dehya. A cutscene.
What do you think you're doing? Don't you see this blade here?
You coward! Why are your hands shaking?
Wait a second! It's a earthquake!
We're in front of the Scarlet King's ruin. We enter the ruins and explore them. Inside there is a lot of vegetation and elemental energy. We arrive at a tomb where we watch a hologram of what really happened in the past. A cutscene.
Civilization is born of knowledge, but so too can knowledge be its demise. A disaster caught us unaware. It was knowledge that did not belong to this world. The Scarlet King brought this forbidden knowledge into our world, and it quickly spread like a plague. People's minds were filled with crazed whispers. Dark gray scales spread across their bodies. Even the land was stripped of its vigor. Only a desperate, deathly silence remained. Were it not for greater Lord Rukkhadevata from the forests, the damage would have been irreversible. She summoned the priests to build temples and infused into them the divine power of life. The disaster was miraculously tempered, and the embers of our civilization were preserved in Aru village. Alas, the miracle could not last. As long as forbidden knowledge continued to exist, it would forever blight this world. In the end, the proud king of the desert, my eternal lord, chose to sacrifice himself. I have spent my whole life since guarding one of these many temples. But now, my duty is coming to an end. As I close my eyes for the final time, the sight of that noble deity will appear in my vision once more. In helping the Scarlet King to eradicate forbidden knowledge, she exhausted her strength, and her form became that of a small child. How strange. Now that I think of her, I no longer have any fear of death, for I sense that the spirit of life will abide with me during my eternal sleep. Children of the desert, cling no longer to past grievances, but hold tight to the memory of this act of benevolence.
Lord Rukkhadevata and the Scarlet King were not enemies. People of Aru village thought that Rukkhadevata brought the destruction. Rasham realizes that it's the sage's fault and not the gods. He gives us the location of the village keepers. We arrive at the Aramide hideout camp where we find the Academia culprits. They confess that the sages want to create a new god because after Rukkhadevata's passing, everything in Sumeru was going for the worst. Then the Torah came with a gnosis and an idea to create a new god. They created a puppet, and the Sub-Zero's festival was for the Akasha to gain power through harvesting dreams. And through the Gnosis, they created the Divine Core. All this because they saw that Kusanali was not as smart as Rukkhadevata. We return to the village. In the chief's house, the traveler tells everyone what he knows. They have one goal in common: crush the sages and rescue Kusanali.